Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing why it's an awesome pitching lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies in their series against the Miami Marlins. 4 games, 4 aces. It's possible. Also, we're going to preview game 1 in a little bit more detail since that is tonight, an earlier game. So take a look at the schedule so you don't miss it. And the Phillies have a bit of a tough schedule ahead. How worried should Phillies fans be, and what should the team do to prepare? All of that on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is indeed Locked On Phillies, and I am Connor Thomas, your host. We come to you live from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing wherever you consume your podcast. Subscribing to the YouTube. That really helps us out. If you have not subscribed yet, it gets you notifications when new episodes are posted. Costs you nothing. Takes like 2 seconds. Really helps us out. So please subscribe to the YouTube Locked On Phillies if you have not already. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Now, the Phillies don't need that right now. They are back home to take on the Miami Marlins for a 4-game set. So they'll be sleeping in their own beds. I'm sure if they went on the road and needed something taken care of, they would go to Booking.com as well. But let's talk about the pitching in this Miami Marlins series, because we are getting a great opportunity as fans of this team to watch what is going to be, what I think, one of the more dominant series of the year. First of all, and we're going to dive deeper into the actual breakdown of game 1, but the Marlins come into this series with a 28-52 record. Not ideal for matching up a team that's 53-27, almost flip-flopped identical records between the Phillies and the Marlins. It's normally a pretty good sign that the series is going to go your way. But here's the thing you want to look at. The guys pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies. We know that Spencer Turnbull just threw, 3 innings in that final game in Detroit. So that means Wheeler is on the mound tonight. Zach Wheeler takes the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies in game 1. Game 2, you got Christopher Sanchez, just signed that extension, just had a great performance in his last start. Game 3, Aaron Nola. And then game 4, you know what that means, Ranger Suarez on the mound. So Wheeler, Sanchez, Nola, Suarez in a 4-game series is an unbelievable lineup. I mean, just listen to these numbers from those guys when you look at who's on the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies. You are seeing guys with ERAs. Let's just run through in order of how they're starting. Wheeler has a 2.73 ERA, a 0.96 whip. Then you're going to see Christopher Sanchez, a 2.67 ERA, lower than Zach Wheeler's, a 1.28 whip. Then you're going to see Aaron Nola, a 3.39 ERA, but a 1.05 whip. And then you're going to see Ranger Suarez with a 2.01 ERA and a 0.93 whip. Those are back-to-back pitching. And you're going Wheeler, righty, Sanchez, lefty, Nola, righty, Suarez, lefty. You could not build a better 4-game setup on the mound in baseball right now. You could not. I'm telling you 100% there will not be a better 4-game series lineup on the mound than what the Philadelphia Phillies are about to trot out there against the Miami Marlins. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. Now, does this mean the Phillies are guaranteed to go out there and win all 4 games and shut down the Marlins and everybody throws a no-hitter or a perfect game? Like, no. Let's be realistic. There's going to be probably 1 game in this series where you don't get a stellar start from one of those 4 guys. That's just kind of the law of averages, but I don't know who it's going to be. And on top of that, the Marlins, well, they have just a deficient offense, a deficient baseball team in general. So it's not just that you have 4 guys going that could all be aces on teams in baseball. It's that you have 4 guys going that all could be aces on teams in baseball against one of the worst teams in baseball. This is awesome. And it's also awesome that it's a divisional matchup that goes this way, because as much as the Philadelphia Phillies record is awesome, the more games you can win in the NL East, the better for your chances to hold that lead over the Braves, the better chance for you to win the NL East for the first time in forever. So I'm very excited for what we're going to see this weekend, this 4-game set at home. if you're going down to Citizens Bank Park, I mean, there's not a bad game to go to. And there's not going to be a bad game to make a night of going out to the bar to watch it out with some friends. Like, this is something that's really, really special that you don't see often, because normally you get 3 days and an off day. If it's a 4-game series, it doesn't always match up that it's going to be your 4 best arms. It's a rare occurrence. It's the solar eclipse of the Major League Baseball season for the Philadelphia Phillies, that they get these 4 pitchers against this bad of a team all in a row in a 4-game series in consecutive days. It's awesome. Do I wish the Philadelphia Phillies had gotten an off day, especially considering how many pitchers they used out of the bullpen yesterday in relief of Spencer Turnbull with that shoulder soreness? Absolutely, it would have benefited them. But that's the other reason why the pitching staff is really, really, well, not the pitching staff, the pitching rotation, the starters, is really, really important in this series, because you just came off a set with the Tigers where you used a good amount of bullpen in the final game. You didn't get an off day in between. It's going to be a bit of a slog for the bullpen with who's available and who's not. You know what really helps with that? Getting 7+ out of all these guys. Do I think there's a chance that you could see 7+ innings pitched from every single one of these pitchers? Absolutely. Why would I not think that? They basically do it every time out. Again, there's bound to be a dud in there somewhere. That's just kind of how the sport goes. But the Phillies haven't swept in a while. Could they sweep a 4-game series? We'll dive into expectations a little bit further. You know how I stand about sweeps, and I fell for it against the Marlins before. Probably not going to fall for it again. But let's do something fun here. I'm going to take a prediction, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. But I want to know who you think is going to have the best start of these 4 guys. This is great, right? This is when 2 great teammates get into a home run hitting competition. There's one dude homers one day, another dude homers the next day. They have this friendly competition in between them. It's fun for the fan base and the team, because wow, these guys are great, and we get to watch greatness compete against each other while the team benefits from all of it. That's kind of what I want to promote this series between the Philadelphia Phillies pitchers. Not that they need to care, but I think it'd be fun for us to talk about. So, of Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, Aaron Nola. Sorry, Wheeler, Sanchez, Nola, Suarez is the order for the series. Who is going to make the best start? I think that Ranger Suarez has a good chance, because he's going to have a bounce back. He's going to be motivated after losing in Detroit. Tarek Skubal had a great start against him, so it wasn't really the fault of Rangers. But I don't know. I'll tell you this: Aaron Nola pitches very, very well against the Marlins. I'm going to take one of the lower odds guys and say, well, at least by the odds that I'm setting, and say Aaron Nola is going to make the best start in this series. I think all the guys are going to be outstanding, but that would be my prediction. And the reasoning is just, I don't know, my recollection of Aaron Nola against the Marlins is that he does very, very well against this team. We'll see if that's something that ends up being the proper pick. You can, again, let me know in the comments who you think is going to have the best start of these 4 guys. And the other thing I just want to talk about here before we move into an in-depth conversation about Game 1, how lucky are we? This is one of those times where you just sit back and you think, man, how good is it to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan right now? Someone who talks about the team, someone who roots for the team, someone who is able to talk trash to other fan bases about the team. It's amazing. I was hanging out last night watching the NBA draft, which was last night. You can go ahead and check out the Locked On NBA channels, Locked On Sixers, for information on the NBA draft and who the Sixers selected. Definitely go ahead and check that out at some point. But while I was there, I was talking to some people who cover the Phillies and deal with that media company that was doing that. And I was like, could you imagine covering the Sixers right now, just in a bleak spot? And then we started talking about other teams in baseball and how a lot of teams in baseball right now are just kind of in purgatory or worse. Right now, it's good to be a Philadelphia Phillies fan. And the biggest reason why might be Bryce Harper, because he's on a rampage right now. But I think the biggest reason, when you look at a collective part of the team, has to be that starting rotation. And you're going to see the full power of the Philadelphia Phillies rotation. We have not seen the full power yet this year. We've seen individual great efforts. We've seen a string of really good starts, but all of that has been like broken up by Taijuan Walker making a rough start, or guys at the start of the season like Aaron Nola didn't have his best stuff right from Jump Street. Christopher Sanchez had a little bit of up and down in there at the beginning, and he's really, really settled in nicely. This will be like all of these guys are throwing well. All of these guys are healthy. All of these guys seem to be feeling good, and they're pitching against, once again, a team in the Marlins that's not that good. So I'm incredibly excited for what we're going to see in this series against the Miami Marlins. And we're going to jump into game one because I have some unbelievable numbers on the predictions for game one. Yeah, there's a reason for it. And I'll tell you what that secret weapon of the Philadelphia Phillies has been so far this year and why they're going to beat the Marlins over the head with it. That coming up next as we continue Locked On Phillies. First, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at Tax Network USA, because this is a very important thing for you to want to check out. I mean, Tax Network USA is an important helper when you deal with the IRS. And we pride ourselves here on Locked On Phillies on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, playoffs. It's never ending. There's no offseason really for us. It's year-round. There's also no offseason for collections. Collection season is year-round as well. And just because tax season's over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. They're going to garnish your wages. They're going to levy your bank account, seize your property. They can do all of those things. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. They got over 14 years of experience and A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They've saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that need some scheduling and tax planning, or you finally hit that parlay this season and you want to correctly file your winnings, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And you can also take a look at the link in the description of this episode for more details on our friends at Tax Network USA. Also want to talk to you about eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships. And it's also what keeps your vehicle alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They got superchargers. They got roof racks. They got LED headlights. They got exhaust kits and about a billion things more. Whether it's speed, power, or style that you're into, eBay Motors has you absolutely covered. Okay, maybe it's not a billion parts, but they've got over 122 million parts for your vehicle. You're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Let's discuss game one of the series. I already kind of gave you the overview, right? We know that you're going to have an outstanding setup for the pitching staff in this series. But what's happening tonight? First thing you need to know about tonight's game between the Phillies and the Marlins, it's an early one, 6:20 p.m., because I believe the Philadelphia Phillies are having their fireworks show after this, the 4th of July coming up next week, and the Phillies are going to be on the road. So I do think this is the fireworks, and that's why they're starting the game 20 minutes early. So if you're used to the 6:40 p.m. first pitch, well, get in your seat a little bit sooner than that, folks, so you do not miss it. And Zach Wheeler is going to be facing off against Trevor Rogers in the pitching matchup. The last time the Phillies faced Trevor Rogers, not only did they smoke him, he went into the dugout and demolished about everything in sight. You remember that? Him walking up and down the dugout, throwing his glove, hitting stuff, smacking the Gatorade cups, all of the things that you see a pitcher do when he's very upset with his performance. That's what happened to Trevor Rogers last time. And with a 1-8 record on the year, I don't know if I blame him. He's got a 4.9 ERA, which might sound low compared to some of the guys that you recently saw in like the Diamondback series and the Tigers series. But now when you look at the 1.55 whip and the 32 walks that he's had in 75 innings, you kind of understand, okay, the ERA is not great. The whip isn't great. The performance by Trevor Rogers isn't great. This should be a day where the Philadelphia Phillies can take care of business. He's only struck out 60 batters in 75 and a third innings pitch. So it's not like he has plus strikeout stuff. He's given up 9 home runs, which, funny enough, is one less than Zach Wheeler's given up. But Wheeler has thrown 99 innings, so an extra 24 innings on top of what Rogers has done. I wouldn't be too worried about Trevor Rogers, and I wouldn't be too worried about the Miami Marlins lineup. When you look at the guys that are leading the club for the Marlins in big offensive statistics, Brian De La Cruz leads the club in home runs. He's got 14. Now he is batting 242. Just for comparison, Bryce Harper leads the Phillies with 20 homers, and he's batting 305. I mean, that's why he's on an MVP caliber tear. Jazz Chisholm Jr. is leading the Marlins in batting average, batting 264. If we had a dude in the outfield batting 264, it would probably be another one of those, okay, he's all right, but he's not contributing as much as he should. That's the guy leading their team. Meanwhile, the guy leading the Phillies is Bryce Harper at 305, and Trey Turner's better than that. He's just not qualified to lead the team in these statistics because of that injury that kept him out for about a month. Jazz Chisholm is also leading the Marlins in RBIs with 37. Alec Bohm has 64. So by my math, what is that? 37 times 2. Okay, it's not double. I'm not a big math guy. It would be 10 short of double, but still, it's a lot more than they have. And there are a lot of guys on the Philadelphia Phillies that have more than 37 RBIs. Like, just for the exact count of how many guys have 37 RBIs or more on the Philadelphia Phillies, let's just run through the list. Bohm has 64. Harper has 57. Schwarber has 49. Castellanos has 39. So that's 4 guys. Stott right behind at 36. So they have 4 guys that are ahead of where the best RBI guy for the Marlins is. That's just it. The Phils are an overall way better team. And it shows in the numbers. These are insane numbers right here. I don't think I've ever seen this before on the ESPN analytics. You know, I always tell you the Phils have like a 60% chance to win this game. That's pretty big of margin compared to what you normally see when I talk about these ESPN predictive analytics, their matchup predictor. Tonight, the Phils have an 80.2% chance to win. 19.8% for the Miami Marlins. Like, how do you have less than a 20% chance to win a ball game? Well, part of the reason is the pitching matchup, the offensive matchup. The Marlins are on the road at Citizens Bank Park, one of the, if not the toughest places to play in baseball this season so far. And the money line reflects that. If you look at the odds, Phils are minus 310 favorites. That's an insanely heavy favorite. That's the stuff you see when, like, a guy is, I don't know, 2 weeks away from winning an MVP trophy and they're a lock. Hopefully we get to have that conversation about Bryce Harper at some point this year. But the Phils heavily favored. There should be no reason they don't win tonight's ball game. There should be no reason they don't win 3 or 4 ball games in this series. Like, they should be able to take this series from the Marlins without a sweat. I will say that. Without a sweat, they should win this series. If they split with the Marlins, that is underachieving. I'm not going to be happy with a split with the Miami Marlins. I'm not going to, like, freak out, but it'll be lower than expectations, which is fair to say when you're that much better than a team. We'll break down the other games as we get deeper into the series and do more episodes. But game 1 tonight, here's what I'm looking for as well. Brandon Marsh, we talked about it in our most recent episode yesterday, the day he had against the Detroit Tigers. He should be an everyday opportunity type of player with Rojas down in the minor leagues. I don't know if it's center. I don't know if it's left. It could be a mix of the two. But you got to keep trotting him out there and see if he stays hot, even with a lefty on the mound. So one of the things I want to see is I want to see Brandon Marsh in the starting lineup tonight. If he's there, hey, hopefully another multi-hit night, maybe a home run. He's been on a drought since he ended it yesterday, but he was on a major, major power outage. It was nice to see him bounce back yesterday, and you can hear more thoughts on yesterday's episode about why Brandon Marsh should be an everyday player for the Philadelphia Phillies, in my opinion. But I'm looking at him to play and him to have a good night. But if he doesn't play, well, we're looking at the righties. And I have a feeling that this could be a big Trey Turner night. I don't know why. It just kind of feels like he's come back. He hasn't missed a step. His average has been good. I have a feeling the power is going to show. I think he might go yard tonight, Trey Turner. That's the guy that I'm looking at to have a good night for the Philadelphia Phillies. Heck, against Trevor Rogers, it could be everybody in this lineup, and that's what you've seen the Phillies do a couple times already this week. But if I have to pick one, I'm going to say Trey Turner has a really big night for the Phillies, and also keep an eye on guys like Nick Castellanos and Alec Bohm, the other righties in the lineup. Coming up next, as we wrap up today's episode, we're going to look a little bit further forward in the schedule, not just this 4-game set with the Miami Marlins, but that'll round out June. What does July have on tap? We're only a couple of days away, and the schedule's starting to get a little sketchy. This team's still playing well, but they need to be playing well to withstand what they have coming up. We'll discuss it as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. But I got to introduce you to a new advertiser with us. I know you've heard of them, but you haven't heard of them on this show yet. So let me tell you about Booking.com. This is an awesome website everybody should know about by now. And if you don't, well, I'm going to tell you. Because summer travel's heating up. People are going on vacations. I just came back from the Outer Banks. Needed to book a place. Needed to book a trip. I got buddies from work going out of the country, in the country, far, near, all of this stuff. It's time to explore places you want to go to enjoy your summer. And even your rival cities, Atlanta, New York, Miami. Now, Miami sounds nice. The other two, I don't know. But you can go anywhere with Booking.com. They got hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your rival's city. There's a bunch of stuff that they're able to do for you. And you can find hotels that look over stadiums. You can find family-friendly resorts. They've got so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. I'm going out to Arizona for a game that I'm planning on attending between the Phillies and the Diamondbacks in August. You can check out Booking.com to find the best possible stuff. So the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app to build that vacation. And I want to tell you about LinkedIn because sales, they're tough. B2B selling, man, it's tougher than ever right now. You might need help. You probably need help. And that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's a sales intelligence program, or platform, I should say, that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. That's basically the short and long of it right there of what you want to do to be a good salesperson. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Work smarter, not harder. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. So right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. 2 months of seeing if this works for you. I believe it's going to. And that's, again, linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and you can get started. All right, let's talk about the schedule upcoming. So you have these final 4 games in June, Marlins at home, ho-hum, nothing crazy there. Then you go to Chicago. And the Cubs are dropping off, but 37-44 is not a terrible team. And Wrigley's always a place that kind of the history may be a little bit distracting. The day game on Thursday, 2:20 p.m., like that's a magical moment. You don't want to make the place feel bigger than it is, but playing at Wrigley's always special. So you play the Cubs. You have that series. You might run into a couple good pitchers in that one. The Cubs are a better team than their record would indicate. Then you go on the road to Atlanta. So you have 6 games on the road to start off the month of July. Atlanta's always going to be a tough series. They're 44-34. It might feel like peanuts compared to the Phillies record, but that's 10 games over 500. That's a good baseball team. It's the one that deserves a lot of respect from the Philadelphia Phillies. Then you come home and you face the Dodgers. Like 6 games on the road, including 3 with the Braves, and then back home for 3 with the Dodgers is just, that's dirty work by MLB scheduling, but it's what they've got in front of them. Really tough stretch. Those 6 games against the Braves and the Dodgers are going to do a couple of things. One, they could show us, oh, this team is legitimately monstrous and they're unstoppable if they handle their business. In the middle, it could be, okay, they're about where we thought they were. They treaded water. They have the room to do that because they had such a hot start. Okay, just get through that by taking 3 games and you can drop 3 games. Or, doomsday scenario, you lose both those series and it looks like, okay, when you play that top level competition in the National League, you don't match up well with them, or you didn't play them well, or you have certain deficiencies. I don't think that's likely, but it's certainly possible against teams that are that caliber. They're huge games, huge series starting July. That's why this 4-game set against the Marlins is very important for the starting pitchers to go as deep as they can in the games. You want to have guys rested when you get to that point of the schedule. And you're not going to get a chance for an off day in between the Cubs and the Braves series. So Monday's the only off day until you face Atlanta. Go ahead and try and get through a lot of innings this series if you're a starting pitcher on the Philadelphia Phillies. You got the guys to do it. That's the goal. It gets a little bit easier after that. I mean, you see the Athletics at home. You go across the state to play the Pirates. Nothing too crazy for the next couple series, but that stretch of Braves-Dodgers will be here before you know it, and that's going to be a point where the Philadelphia Phillies need to be firing on all cylinders. Do we know if JT is going to potentially be back by that point? I wouldn't expect so. It seems they're still targeting the All-Star break for his potential return. You got a ways to go until that's concerned. Not until the 14th is when you get July 14th is when you get the time off for the All-Star break, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. So it is a bit of a sprint to the finish of the quote-unquote first half, even though the first half ends tonight. But that's something to focus on. Speaking of the first half ending tonight, I might as well bring that up since I brought it up. Does that make sense? You know what I mean. Tonight is game number 81 for the Philadelphia Phillies. After tonight's game, they will be halfway through the schedule for the regular season. Kind of crazy in a couple ways. First of all, it feels like, wow, we're already halfway. But then when you think about everything we've been through already with this team, you're like, oh, we're only halfway. It's a double-edged sword. I think about this all the time. When you realize it, it feels like it's going quick. When you think back on all the stuff that's happened, it feels like it's going slow. So whether you think it's the timing feels right or not, the fact of the matter is the Phillies, after tonight's game with the Marlins, will be halfway through. And that's why on tomorrow's episode, we're going to be taking a look at some stuff from the first half, who've had the strongest performances, who have been the disappointments. There's a lot more in that first category than the second category. And the second half of the schedule for the Philadelphia Phillies is significantly harder. Well, I don't know if I'd say significantly at this point because we've seen the Phillies are such a dominant team. It is noticeably more difficult, right? Do the Phillies have enough horses to get through it? You bet your rear end that they do. But this is why this series against the Marlins is important. This is why momentum going into July is important. It's about to get ramped up a little bit. And the closer you get, the more teams are going to make moves, the more things feel like more important for seeding. This is the time where you should probably start checking in on the standings more if you have not already. By the way, just a quick look at the standings while we're on that topic as well. The Philadelphia Phillies have an 8-game lead in the NL East, and in the National League, they have themselves a 3-game lead over the Dodgers, who are slowly closing the gap. They have a 1-game lead on the Cleveland Guardians for best record in baseball. So the Phil's still ahead of everybody and everything, but they don't have a huge margin for error when it comes to the National League. They don't have a mail it in for the rest of the season lead over the Braves. They should be able to take care of business, but it's going to require them playing good baseball continuously. And the stakes get a little bit higher with every passing week, every passing month. So things to keep an eye on. Wow, we've looked back, we've looked at today, and we've looked forward. So covered a whole lot of time frames here on today's episode of Locked On Phillies. And tomorrow's episode, I was already telling you, we're going to review some stuff from the first half, but we're also going to do a recap of tonight's game with the Miami Marlins. One more time, the prediction for the series before I let you guys go. 3 games out of 4 for the Philadelphia Phillies. That is what I would expect. A split, not good enough. A sweep, possible, but not something that I'm going to predict. I learned my lesson the hard way. I did that earlier, and it was against the Marlins, funny enough. And I said they're going to sweep the Marlins. They're a significantly better team. They won 2 out of 3, won the series, totally fine. And I was upset because, not like upset at the team, I was upset with myself for putting the expectations out there that seemed unreasonable. So I'm not going to fall for that again. Is a sweep certainly possible, though? I hope they do. I hope they can beat the Marlins 4 times in a row. They swept them in the wild card series last year, and that team was so much better than this team. This Marlins team is dreck. They're going to be sellers at the deadline. You could also keep an eye out on Jazz Chisholm, who could be on the move come trade deadline. Could play the outfield for you. Who knows? A lot of interesting things about this series. Tonight's game hopefully is a nice easy waxing of the Miami Marlins, but we'll see. And whatever the case is, we'll talk about it tomorrow. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. And I will talk to you next time on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.